The Financial Stability Board, of course, came out of the G20, and it all happened at a fairly rapid pace. And I think it's a very important time, and this conference is fulfilling that important moment, to sit back and reflect on how is it working, how do we expect it and hope for it to work, and have we fallen into a structure that will actually make it hard to work. One of the things we've discussed a lot today, this morning, has been about the legitimacy issues. Just one aspect of the Financial Stability Board, but an important aspect. You know, I think this conference has really hit home a very important paradox, which is that we want a broader, more legitimate steering committee, if you like, for global financial regulation. The FSB is much more democratic and legitimate than, say, the narrow Basel Committee, which is critical to banking supervision. But the broader you go in terms of legitimacy, the more you spread across banking systems and financial systems that are very, very different from each other. And the harder it is to develop a convergence of views, an agreement on rules. It's early days yet, it has to be said, and to some extent, whilst the developing country members of the G20 are very keen to be there, they're being asked questions they were never really asked before in terms of their views as to how the US should run its financial system. And those are different questions. But you are already beginning to see people talking in terms of the balance between global principles. What are the core principles that we might all sign up to? And what kind of freedoms must we have at the local level to manage our different financial system? One of the things that I try to do in the session is talk about a new internationalism, where the new internationalism is about how do we integrate diversity. The old internationalism was an idea that we could have one rule that we should push everywhere, and that we didn't want to have too much diversity, too many people doing different things. They could be doing bad things, and we need to correct them with a single stick and a single rule. And I think we've realized that that may be possible in a very narrow set of countries, and that may still coexist in the world. But the larger the number of countries you're talking about, the harder that's going to be. So I think the new internationalism is how do you integrate in a global financial system diversity? How do you move from trying to compromise over one single rule towards cooperating between different types of systems? One of the important things that came out in this discussion to remember is that people tend to think of the FSB in the same breath as they think of the WTO, of the IMF, or the World Bank, but those other organizations are treaty organizations. And therefore there is a process of constituency, of rulemaking, of voice. And one of the problems has been that the G20 and the FSB, they're not treaty-based organizations. They're very fluid organizations. Their membership does not appear to be settled. And indeed, the memberships have started to diverge between the FSB now and the G20, and I suspect that will continue. And there has been a discussion today about how we try and pin the FSB into something that is more stable in terms of process and voice and constituency. So some of the discussion is, should the FSB report to the IMF, to the IMFC? Should it report to the G20 leaders? How do we make the FSB not an ad hoc network, but something more formal? Well, it's a classic ploy in international political economy. You'd say it's a classic ploy of the powerful to make sure that the organization that takes power away is understaffed. It makes it hard for them to do their job. The UN is a chronically understaffed, or understaffed and underfunded, perhaps more importantly, organization. I think that if they really want to have greater international cooperation and coordination, we need to staff it better and fund it better. Housing it as a sort of in a down the end of the corridor, the BIS, is probably not the way to make this organization to be truly effective and powerful.